Spattering and splattering are fun techniques, but can be very messy. All right, and they're super fun, but like I said, they could be very messy. So one of the things that you could use is an old toothbrush. Okay, and that's something that you may, is something that's handy in every single watercolor artist's toolbox, right? Is an old toothbrush. Now, if you don't have an old toothbrush, which is fine, a flat works out just as well. The key thing is that you have some fairly short bristles. This is for the spatter portion, right? Okay. With a splatter, what you really want is more of a mop brush or a large round, so you can see the difference there. Okay. But you could also do a splatter with this, but I'll explain that in a second. Okay. So the first thing is making sure that your pigments are charged up and that you actually have some paint in them. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create a little bit of red in here, right? And I want it to flow. That's the thing, is I really want it to flow. Okay, the more pigment that I add, the more the color will be saturated. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put that there. Now notice, actually, I have paper towel, and I actually have paper towel down at the bottom of here, and I'm going to put some paper towel up here. The reason for that is because I want to block out these different areas so that way I don't get spattering or paint where I don't want it. Some people will use tape eventually when we want to get a little bit more specific or a little bit more detailed, which is totally cool. Okay, I'm not doing that right now. All right, I'm okay with it being a little bit of a mess because I'm playing with this. So I'm going to go ahead and take my toothbrush, and I'm just putting it right into the paint, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my thumb, I'm going to come in close, and you can see that is a spattering. The further I get away, the larger the spread. The closer I get, the more of the tighter the dots are. Now, one of the things that you have to be careful about this, okay, is notice this is wet on dry. Okay, if I add some water, if I do this wet on wet, it's going to get a different result, right? Excuse me, sorry about that. See what happens? Very different result. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, that water will impact it. Okay, so I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying keep that in mind, right? Now, with your brush, if you're using the brush here, again, it's just a little bit of some water in there. Make sure you have a color mixed up. And all you're doing is coming in here. Oh, not enough water. Okay, and so it's all on my finger, not on my painting. There we go. Now I'm getting some blue in there. See? And that is a spattering. So it creates a very fine sandy texture, okay, which is kind of cool. All right. If I do it this way, it just spreads the different dots different directions. Okay. Now the splatter, that requires a little bit more water. Okay, and that's definitely a lot more. What's the word I'm looking for? A lot harder to control. Okay, so right now what I'm doing is I'm actually loading up my brush with a charged color, okay? Because what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to kind of like just throw the paint onto it. So if I come in here, I'm going to throw the paint, it's going to hit my fingers, and the paint's going to fly off of it. Okay, so it's at an angle, so that's why I'm slightly off screen. Okay, so it comes in here, and that's a splatter. Okay, now the more pigment that I have on this, the more lines I could get. Okay, so it's like you're doing a spell with a magic wand, right? Right? Does that make sense? Now I can't actually do that with one of these brushes. Okay, so if I'm going to do that with one of these brushes, I have to make sure that the brush is really loaded up. Okay, and again, look at how the difference between wet on dry and wet on wet. Because if I come in here, see, that's a splatter. Usually I like to use a splatter like Jackson Pollock where I really load it up and I throw the paint. okay? And what that does is it helps create some very natural veining in stone and brick and marble, okay? So make sure you clean up afterwards and you set up your area so that you don't make a lot of mess. Also, mind you, you might get some on your clothes, so be careful, okay? Have fun.